Welcome to Center Ice, the Hockey Alberta podcast, home to all things hockey in our great province. Now, here's your host, Ted Emmett.
Welcome back to another episode of the Center Ice podcast. I'm your host, Ted Emmett. Had a little bit of an extended gap between episode 3 and episode 4, but thank you for joining us for episode 4. Last couple of weeks, needless to say, in hockey and really our province in general, quite a bit has changed right now. And when I say right now, this very well could change again between the time I say it and the time you hear it. But right now, team sports in Alberta are on a pause in all areas with enhanced measures in place, which really means with the Government of Canada's map, it's all the purple areas, which really covers quite a bit of the provinces. We're going to find out a little bit later on here in the show. That original 2-week pause set to end on November 27th, but with cases continuing to rise, the Government of Alberta came out and extended it by another 3 weeks. And so for this episode of Center Ice, we're really going to focus on what the next few weeks look like for hockey in our province, a little bit of a state of the union, and a bit later on we're going to chat with Barry Medori, Hockey Alberta's high performance coach mentor. He's going to give some advice to coaches on what they can do to keep their teams engaged in hockey during this pause. You can't necessarily be on the ice, but still lots of great ways to stay engaged as a team. And with Barry, he's a wealth of knowledge, and I know he's going to have a lot to offer on that subject. First, though, we're going to check in with Hockey Alberta CEO Rob Litwinski, who actually joined us on the inaugural episode of the podcast back in October. Needless to say, things have changed quite a bit. They look a little different now. So we're going to chat with him a little bit, get an update on things through the lens of Hockey Alberta. So we'll take a trip into Rob's home, a virtual trip that is. Rob, I know you didn't think you'd be back on the podcast so soon, but always happy to have you. Welcome back.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, I think we kind of thought the kickoff was done right, and that we'd be talking about different things by now and having some of the exciting guests we've had since that time. But I guess unfortunately, you have me again.
And a pretty eventful couple of weeks. Our environment across the province, not just in hockey, has changed and continues to change. At Hockey Alberta specifically, as you can see now, we're working from home, doing our part to stay safe and keep everyone around us safe. Certainly a busy time still, though, for you and the organization.
It is. It's been, the last, we talked about March 12th last time, and I guess November 12th now is kind of etched in our minds as well, when certainly there was an order put in place that affected our sport significantly. That's obviously been extended from that point of view, which kind of leads to us being in the current pause. I think like many things we've had all the way through this, we continue to meet daily. We continue to try and we are working with our members, work with our leagues, working with our staff to continue to work. And this is a little different for us. This is in the middle of the hockey season at this point. There's some other, we felt that with the numerous interpretations that were needed around AHS guidelines, and those were still ongoing, that we had the game back to a place where I think most of us in the game, both as administrators, as players, as coaches, we had kind of gotten used to our new normal, and we were proceeding with that. But obviously, the cards that were played were a little different, and now we're in the midst of working on that now.
And with this pause, taking a lot of work on Hockey Alberta's end to really define those guidelines and restrictions that came down from the government, which is now outlined all on that FAQ document on our website on the Return to Hockey page. So it's all there for people who maybe don't have that full clarification, might have some questions, aren't quite sure. So that's all there for everyone to utilize. But can you maybe hit on just a Cole's notes of maybe not all the guidelines, but maybe the most important ones where people maybe think it might be open to interpretation or aren't quite sure if it includes them or not?
Well, I think the backing up to the process and why we've done, we take a lot of pride in interpreting what we get from AHS and from our SPAR counterparts, and I think that's something that we put a lot of work into. So I think you pointing that out to anybody who's listening, I think is a worthwhile read. It can be, I guess, a moving target at times for us as well. And I think those are some things that we thought were really, really important. I mean, when you cut to really what this means for us, this pause it is a health order. That whole health order is also available to the public. public, which actually, when that came out on, as obviously was announced early in the weekend last week, but it came out as a formal order on the Friday. Some people like to read through that to see exactly what it says, and I know some of us do that. But I think that being available publicly as well can help people in terms of trying to find the guidance on that. Really what it means for us is the majority of our province at this point hits that pause, majority of our hockey playing province. I think we've estimated right now that probably about 90% of our participants would be affected by that order. Probably about 75% of our member minor hockey associations. Obviously the disparity in that would be to do with the fact that, the order does cover more of our, higher population cities and whatnot. So in saying that, there's still the opportunity to participate in hockey in what we're now referring to as I think they're the non-purple areas. So that is taking place. So that was an important clarification, which even as recently as this weekend, we've still been working on. One other thing, and I know I'm going quite long here, but one other key piece that came out very early from Jason Kenney's words, right to the point of our FAQs, was really what exemptions meant or didn't mean. And I think it was launched as a very generic statement. And I know that we received phone calls, emails, texts, things on social media with respect to who applies for an exemption, right from an individual parent feeling that they wanted to apply for an exemption for their particular player, or teams or associations. And really what we received clarity on is that really it's intended and always was intended to be a very exclusive exemption list, and really without reading the FAQ for you and without having it right in front of me, really what it means is it's really intended for some of the sports that are really acting, whether it be professional sports or sports such as in hockey's case, looking at like the World Juniors are planned and whatnot. So that leads to things like added testing, and many things like that. So I think that clarity was important, but it was an interesting period of time for us, middle of last week, trying to explain that.
And not really a popular decision that was handed down by the government. Of course, we hear the feedback, and it's how could it be a popular decision, right? Hockey is something, or sports in general, are keeping a lot of people going through the tough time. And I know at Hockey Alberta, we hear that. At the same time, though, we're working to make sure that, as you said, everyone understands these guidelines and follows them, because at the end of the day, safety is number one.
Absolutely. And we've kind of got experience in this now, which I guess none of us really asked for, but we've received. And I think that's been important. I don't ever intend to make light of the situation we're in. And certainly, Ted, we treat this is our reason for existence and what we're trying to do and making sure our sport is here and here safely. However, I think we're getting used to working with chaos, and that's what part of this is. And that's not to really to disparage any what's happening with the policies that are being created. These are things that are happening in our society for the first time ever, and I think what we continue to do is do our best to make sure people know that, as we said in our last podcast, and we continue to say, we are taking the guidelines and we are interpreting them as best we can to keep our sport going and keeping it on the ice. And I think at times we get reminded of people see what they would consider to be an inconsistency in their town or in a region. And sometimes there's a bit of an instant reaction to say, how come Hockey Alberta is not letting us do this? This is something I just saw with my own eyes or whatnot. And I think in our case, we're trying to do the best to make sure people know that we are dealing with what's being dealt to us. We believe that we have a responsibility with this massive membership to try and educate. That's why our FAQs are posted, they're written. I don't think we're trying to make it a habit of Ted Ebbett reciting one and then Rob Litwinski reciting and maybe we miss a couple words. We think the written version is very important. Sometimes our FAQs come out a little later than we'd like on a given day because we're actually asking the same thing of our AHS and our SPAR counterparts, that when we have it in writing, we know things change quickly. We release it and people know that at that point they can follow that and move from there. So once again, I know I kind of went all over the place there, but hopefully that helps out a little bit.
Yeah, and now in the middle of this pause, and of course, very optimistic as always that at the end of this 3 weeks, hockey will come back and it's what we're prepared for. But really, it's reality, and I think important for everyone to remember, teams, to do what they can to stay engaged. There's still a lot that teams can do virtually and safely while adhering to those guidelines. And I know we're going to talk to Barry Medori about that a little later, ways to stay engaged. On Hockey Alberta's side, though, as we get prepared for that pause to end in 3 weeks, what do the next couple of weeks look like in moving forward? Because obviously everything's a moving target and really hard to plan for one thing specifically.
Well, what we want our focus to be, and we're going to be working really hard with, from government representatives to hopefully AHS representatives, is we believe there's a period of time here where we can look at how to have a restart or what happens, and that could be a number of things. So, kind of two different pieces of information. That one is what could dates be? What could dates look like? We certainly understand and appreciate, and I think we're sensitive to the fact that we are in a state of emergency right now. So I think we understand that's where we're at right now. And the 3 weeks has been something that's been stated, but we recognize that there's factors that are, far outside of sport that are going to determine when that state of emergency ends. But in saying that, we think as a sport, as we've done from day one, we really want to try and work with our government representatives, as I said, to try and build a plan for the future, whether that is what hockey could or what all sport could look like in mid-December, whether that's December 18th or not, what our sport could look like at the start of 2021, whether that be, dates that maybe mirror what some of the school dates we've seen are, or whether that, is a date that's actually right after the Christmas holidays, for example. So those are the kind of things we want to start talking about and working at. And then secondly, we want to be open with kind of three areas that this can go for us. One is the opportunity. One example is not coming back. So we're being optimistic in terms of we are going to come back, but really three options of that. And one is returning in the form that we kind of left, which is really that 50-person cohort, 14 days in between, kind of relaunch. We know that our teams were primarily picked and our leagues were kind of ready to go. So that would be one option. We know that a second option might be that perhaps we can look at ways of coming back with a bit more. Maybe there has to be more restrictions, and if it comes down to the opportunity to play versus the opportunity not to play, we want to make sure we have the flexibility to say, if we were to move our plan back to, let's say, the development season, which includes perhaps some physically distanced skates or whatnot, I believe that, we believe our hockey public would want that. We want to manage that, of course. We want as much hockey back as we can, but we're open to what those options may look like. Even within the cohorting structure, whether additional masking, people may hate to see this, but if it means our game coming back, whether the addition of spectators and things like that, but we want to have that dialogue, because I'm not sure we want to go and throw options 1 to 18 on the table. It's which ones of those are most important in moving ahead. But I think that's an important piece that we have to all consider. We've seen that different provinces are doing different things as well. So I think there's some examples of things we might be able to look at there. And the third one, which is probably the most optimistic of them all, and certainly I would not. I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't bet this is something that hits in 2020. But as an optimist, I'd say that perhaps we're talking about this in 2021 as early as possible, which is the ability to really come back and have less restrictions. Meaning, perhaps as an example, we move from what we're at right now to some of the guidelines that were created for junior and university hockey, where timing could be a little bit shorter, from 14 days to 7, or perhaps our cohorts get a little bit bigger. So those are kind of what we're looking at. We want to continue to work with other sport. We want to work with our government representatives and on behalf of our members to see what can happen.
And nearly impossible to predict the future right now. We have no idea even what next week will look like, let alone 2021. But from Hockey Alberta's standpoint, what kind of things are being looked at when it comes to the 2021 season and how that might play out?
I describe probably our immediate future, and we know that the discussions are starting around, again, putting your optimistic hat on, that we will be playing in January of 2021 in one way, shape, or form, and continuing to play. We know that the discussions have started on things like whether, should the season be a little bit longer? What can we do to make sure we maximize the opportunity for people to participate? And I think those are things that we know that we've already started to work on behind the scenes, and we'll continue to work with our members on as well in terms of what that really means. We've all learned a great deal in the last, 9 or 10 months, that you really don't know it used to be it almost used to be habit in terms of knowing exactly what would be next. Many teams' schedules look the same as they did the year before. So in this case, we're all adjusting to the fact that, we have a new group of variables that we have to deal with. And we want to make sure we work our best to work with not just hockey, but with other sport on, what's the right solution to some of those things.
Well, Rob, you have a lot on your plate, as we've mentioned, so I'll let you go. Thank you again for taking the time to join us and update us on what's going on from Hockey Alberta's standpoint. As always, we appreciate it.
No, again, it's I enjoyed our first experience, Ted, and we have to stop meeting like this, I guess. But certainly the work that's been done since that first guest has been terrific. Not that you did great work, Ted, but just making light of myself on there. But if this is another great avenue for us to speak frankly about where we're at, sometimes this type of approach maybe doesn't come across in written communication to our members or whatnot, but we've taken this very seriously right from day one. We are learning on the fly as we can, and we're doing everything we can to try and do safely to bring the game back. And I think that's what's ahead of us now, and we know what the goal is, and we'll continue to work towards that.
Well, we're always happy to have you and do appreciate the candid approach. Hopefully it does clarify a lot of things. And as you mentioned, hopefully we can do this again on some different terms.
Yeah, exactly. And you can just, if we keep doing this, we can just watch the hair getting grayer each time too. So.
All right. Well, again, we'll let you get back to it. Take care and stay safe.
Bet you too, Ted. Thanks.
So big thank you again to Rob for taking the time to join us and share a little bit more insight from the Hockey Alberta side of things. As mentioned, for all the information you need on Return to Hockey, head to the Return to Hockey page on hockeyalberta.ca. Now, before we chat with Barry Medori, we're going to take a quick look at what's going on around the province. So here's what you need to know. Hockey Alberta's annual general meeting took place on November 21st, with Alameen Vera and Fran Zinger elected to Hockey Alberta's board of directors. This is Vera's first time on the board, while it marks the 15th year for Zinger, as she served in various capacities since 2006, including vice chair. The AGM also saw Hockey Alberta induct 2 new life members, Bob Bartlett of Lethbridge and Ann Hayden of Vauxhall.
Bob Bartlett, Lethbridge. Bob Bartlett of Lethbridge has had a remarkable impact on the Alberta hockey community, serving in various roles at all levels of the game for more than 5 decades. Bob was a coach mentor, instructor, and evaluator for Hockey Alberta for more than 30 years. He coached minor hockey in Lethbridge in the 1970s and 80s and served as a board member with Lethbridge Minor Hockey. At the junior level, Bob has been a key figure for more than 40 years in the Western Hockey League. His roles included scout, general manager, and director of player development with the Lethbridge Broncos and Hurricanes. He received the WHL's Distinguished Service Award in 2018. Bob has been recognized for his work with induction into 3 Halls of Fame. The Alberta Hockey Hall of Fame in 2010 as a builder, the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame in 1998, and the University of North Dakota Sports Hall of Fame for his collegiate playing achievements. He received a Hockey Alberta Centennial Award in 2007 and the Hockey Alberta Hockey Development Award in 2009. Bob is currently a member of the Hockey Alberta Foundation Board of Directors, a position he has held since 2004. Ann Hayden, Vauxhall. Ann Hayden of Vauxhall dedicated countless hours to the game of hockey and to Hockey Alberta as an active volunteer in the Alberta hockey community for over 40 years. Starting with her local minor hockey association in Vauxhall, Ann served as secretary and treasurer before becoming the Zone 5 chair, a position she held for 5 years. In 1985, Ann took on the role of South Director of Female Hockey for Hockey Alberta and was instrumental in helping to grow the female game. Ann eventually became the Female Hockey Chair for Hockey Alberta in 1988. In 1992, she played a large part in organizing the South Central AA League in Brooks. She also served as the league secretary, treasurer, and statistician for 3 years, and was recognized for her hard work and dedication to the sport, locally and provincially. As a member of the 2010 induction class to the Hockey Alberta Hall of Fame, Anne passed away in 2016 at the age of 81.
Congratulations to both Life members. Very deserving honor for two people who have given so much back to our game in Alberta. And more congratulations are in order as the past chair of Hockey Alberta's Board of Directors, Terry Engen, was elected to Hockey Canada's Board of Directors. Very exciting news for Hockey Alberta as Terry is extremely dedicated to hockey and has done some incredible things for the game in our province. So really has a lot to bring to the table at the national level, and we're really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And let's keep the good news going. The Hockey Alberta Foundation recently announced its Every Kid, Every Community grant recipients for this quarter, with over $34,000 being distributed to help more than 400 kids access the game across our province. And you can help even more kids get in the game too, and get some Christmas shopping done while you're at it. The Hockey Alberta Foundation has teamed up with Major League Socks, all in support of the Every Kid, Every Community program. For every pair of socks sold using the code HockeyAlberta at checkout, $6 goes back to the foundation. So if you haven't heard of Major League Socks, they have a huge selection of socks with the faces of your favorite NHL players on them, past and present. So make sure you head to their website and check it out. And again, use that code HockeyAlberta, that's one word, when you check out, and help support a great cause. And you can take it even a step further to support Every Kid, Every Community, as the foundation has also launched the Perfect Pairing Contest, where teams will have a chance for a Zoom call with a Calgary Flames or an Edmonton Oilers player, their choice. It's pretty straightforward. You sign your team up, and whichever team purchases the most socks as a group using that code wins. All the details are there on hockeyalberta.ca, and that contest closes December 31st. And even more congratulations are in order as Sherwood Park's Randy Rosen was named Hockey Alberta's Coach of the Month. A very inspirational story there as Randy, the head coach of the Sherwood Park U16 AAA Squires of the Alberta Elite Hockey League, was diagnosed with cancer back in August, and despite his prognosis decided he still had a lot to give back to his community and the game, so he continues to coach. Again, just an amazing story there. Make sure you head to hockeyalberta.ca to read more. And one last round of congratulations as Alberta officials Kyle Kowalski, Fraser Lawrence, and Dion Foster were all selected to join a team of 26 Canadian officials who will work the 2021 World Junior Championship in Edmonton. Always a proud moment when Hockey Alberta's officials get the call to national events, and a really special experience actually for Kyle Kowalski, as his father Kevin officiated an exhibition game in Grand Prairie way back in 1995 when Red Deer hosted the World Juniors, so a pretty cool tie-in there. Kyle's actually the very first subject of Hockey Alberta's new Hockey for Life campaign, which aims at sharing the amazing stories from the incredible people that make up our game across the province. Here's a little preview.
But one of my fondest memories is still just walking behind my dad into the rink at like Aikinsdale Arena and then seeing him on the ice and as your hero. And then now I have the ability to do that. And another really cool thing is my dad was involved in the 1995 World Juniors when they were in Red Deer. He did the exhibition game up in Grand Prairie. And he did the first game in that Grand Prairie rink before they opened it for the Canada Winter Games. And so, what is that, 25 years later, I get to be involved in the World Juniors. To me, that's pretty cool, and this is a memory I'm probably never ever going to forget. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So a huge thank you again to Kyle for sharing his story with us, and congratulations to him, Fraser Lawrence, and Dion Foster one more time for their selection to the World Junior Championships. If you know anyone who really embodies what Hockey for Life means and want to share their story, head to our website to find out how. That's what you need to know. As always, head to hockeyalberta.ca for more information. And that brings us now to a new feature for the Center Ice podcast, the Mha Spotlight. Producer Steve has been working behind the scenes pretty hard on this one, and is going to shine a light on a different minor hockey association each month. First up is the Grimshaw Minor Hockey Association.
We name is Steve Hennings. I'm the president of the Grimshaw Minor Hockey Association in Grimshaw, Alberta. We're 5 hours north of Edmonton, a small community, 2,700. The Minor Hockey Association, it got a rich history in Grimshaw, and it dates back several decades. The association had suffered tragic loss in 2008 when a fire took the arena and they were without a home. The town did rebuild, and currently they are now playing in state-of-the-art facility, the Mile Zero Regional Multiplex. It's nice too when we can see some of our players move on to bigger and better teams, like as far as the junior levels and stuff. I think the organization has definitely left their mark as they've made some very competitive teams over the years. I feel I'm helping the organization, and I can't take all the credit because the organization does have a great volunteer board. Yeah, just to try and grow the organization, make it better is the most positive thing I feel I draw as president. The question that everyone has is why not to charge player fees? And it originally started pre-COVID and into the beginning of COVID. Last year, our U7 numbers were way down. It was being tossed around, well, why don't we waive the fees at those levels to try and bring the numbers up? And then the COVID hit, the region was hurting, families are hurting, people are out of work, and we obviously didn't know what kind of season we'd have either. It was a board decision to waive fees at all levels. We still request players do fundraising, but the actual initiation fees have been waived. I've had a lot of questions from members of other organizations. Well, how can your board afford to do that? So we have a board that's been very fiscally responsible over the years, and we do have money to cover this situation. For this year anyway, we're happy to do it.
And thank you again to producer Steve and Grimshaw Minor Hockey President Steve Hemmings for putting that together. Now it's time to head up Highway 2 to Spruce Grove and into the home of Hockey Alberta's high-performance coach mentor and 2020 recipient of Hockey Canada's Gordon Jukes Award, Barry Medori. Barry, always good to see you. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Good morning to you, Ted.
And before we get going, Barry, can you just give us a bit of a background on your role as a coach mentor? We have two of them, yourself and Fran Gow. Just basically what a coach mentor does for Hockey Alberta.
The term mentor is actually one that you could almost change. It's like being a teacher. My role is working with the Team Alberta side in the mentorship department. So I work with both our male and female provincial teams. With them, everything from A to Z, and getting them prepared for the different camps, the selection camps that we run. Obviously getting prepared for the event and then being at the event. Also with them, I do the mental performance piece, which is something that has become a real passion for me. It's a little bit outside the mentorship role, but I've gotten an opportunity now to get to know the kids a lot better, whereas before it was more just working with the staff. With our grassroots programs, whether it's the Winter Games, male and female, whether it's Pee Wee Prospects, the Girls Challenge, or the Alberta Cup for the guys, responsibility there is to help to recruit coaches for each one of the events, find mentors for every team. We are the only branch in Canada that operates with a mentorship program for our grassroots programs. Really proud of that because the whole philosophy behind it when I was hired years ago was one of trying to get coaches to end up understanding short-term competition and how to plan and prepare for it. And so the mentors that I end up recruiting are people who have been through the process, understand what it takes to plan, organize, prepare, and coach in a short-term event. We found in the last number of years, our kids that are going up into the Hockey Canada under 17, under 18 and World Junior, our players from Alberta are very well prepared. They know what it takes to end up getting there. They know how to come together as a team. If you take a look at the number of them that have worn letters on their jerseys and been leaders on the teams, I think it speaks well to what Hockey Alberta has done to help them to get there. As well, from a coaching side, we've had many of our coaches be successful down the road as well, within Hockey Canada as well as within their professional or their volunteer roles within society in Alberta. So I guess in a nutshell, that's what it's all about.
Hockey Alberta, the only branch who has coach mentors on staff full time, and I think it's in my 5 years here, I've seen pretty cool things. Something people may not know still exists. I know I didn't before I started here, and again, the work you guys do, not only as you mentioned to develop coaches, but the effect it has on the players is pretty amazing. And lately, you've been focusing on helping coaches, helping teams stay engaged, because 2020 has been a challenging year, and to close off is throwing some more challenges at us with a pause going on. Not everywhere either. It's some places are paused, some aren't for hockey. And while we want to be optimistic, we really don't know what the coming weeks and months look like. So really, what are the challenges that teams are facing right now with this pause?
Well, there's a lot. And again, it depends. Some teams are still allowed to play and practice and others aren't. So I think we can get into that later. But honestly, I think, Ted, the biggest thing that we can help them focus on is that we want them to be people that can change. We don't want them to be victims of change. And I think that's a really critical element to look at. If you are a coach right now out there and wondering what to do and where to go, we can end up being within the environment. We can help to create it, or we can end up being something that the environment creates us and causes a lot of problems for us. I just finished reading a book, and a quick analogy of it. It's called The Coffee Bean. And if you put a carrot into a boiling pot of hot water, which right now COVID would be the boiling pot of hot water, the carrot turns soft. It changes its texture. It changes the way that it thinks. Probably would end up, if it was a person, make excuses, find reasons, back out of things. If you put an egg into that boiling pot of hot water, it turns hard. It becomes negative. It becomes critical of everything. If you put a coffee bean in that water, it changes the environment. The coffee bean becomes the environment. So what I've been trying to tell coaches and players that I've been doing Zoom conferences with lately is you need to be the coffee bean. You need to be the person that is willing to change, sees it coming, and doesn't let the environment affect us. Rather, we affect the environment that we're in. We have the control to do that.
Wow. Well, as a side note, after this, you and I might talk about you becoming my life coach, because that's pretty profound. I like that a lot. So now when we're looking at teams who are affected by the pause, they can't get together as a team. They can't play. They're in those enhanced measure zones. What can coaches do and teams as a whole to stay engaged and make sure that they're still keeping that team bond and doing what they can during this pause?
Well, quite a few things, actually. I think to start with is that coaches need to stay positive. Again, go back to what I just explained with a coffee bean. We can control our environment. Feed the good wolf. Make sure that we always have positive things to say and think of with our players. It should not be doom and gloom whatsoever. It is what it is. We can't change what's going on other than we can do our part, what we're asked to do to try and make that change. I think as coaches, you need to show that you care. I think that's the biggest thing that I've gotten out of listening to everything the last 5 or 6 months and the reading and that I've done is you got to communicate with your players. You need to support them, and especially right now, the ones that aren't allowed to play, they're going to need it more than anything. I think we need to find ourselves to become very creative in what we're doing, which means you can't just sit there and try and come up with ideas. I think there's a bunch of research that needs to be done. You need to educate yourself more as a coach to find out what's out there. And I think the biggest one is to provide opportunities to maximize individual development. I think right now, let's be excited about it. Like, here's an opportunity that we have. We could almost turn ourselves into a European country where they practice 4 or 5 times to one game that they have. Well, that's our opportunity now. And when I talk about that, at the end of the day, that they can do a whole bunch of different things that relate to that individual improvement. We, with Hockey Alberta, both the grassroots level, the development side, as well as Team Alberta, always talk about we have 4 buckets to fill. We have a physical, we have a technical, we have a mental, and we have a life skills bucket. And I think now let's be excited about the fact that we can fill each one of them. The one typically that coaches don't do a lot of. And the presentations I've done the last 2 or 3 weeks with different groups, when I get into the mental performance side of it, a lot of them are just amazed at what's out there, because they spend most of their time on the technical, which is teaching skills, and the tactical, which is teaching them how to play, how to put those skills into use, linking it to a game. And they spend very little time on the life skills and on the mental side of it. And I think now that's the important part that we need to really work with coaches on, so that they can work with their players on how do they become better, how do they stay positive through this whole process, accept that the change is there, and how are they going to adapt and adjust to it.
Well, and I think we saw, in the spring when everyone was at home again across the province and really pretty much across the country, we saw the hockey from home thing come up. Players were doing a lot of different types of stuff like that, and really creative. I know even right now I think it was on social media, I think it was an Airdrie minor hockey coach doing online cooking classes with his team. So as you mentioned, it doesn't all have to be necessarily hockey skill related, but just keep your team engaged and find different ways to do that. So I think lots of creativity, I think, already has been shown, and lots of opportunity to do that. What about, though, there are teams who maybe can play, their schedules may be changed from this pause, different set of challenges, but maybe still face some challenges nonetheless. What can you say to those coaches, those teams? Maybe, again, they've got a bit of opportunity now to practice more instead of play. What kind of opportunities come from that?
Well, and again, if you take a look at it just from the pure coaching side, how much you can learn and gain from having to change your way of doing things. Like, you're so used to practicing 2 nights a week, having an off-ice session, and then playing on the weekends, to now where it's every second weekend you're playing. Maybe your practice times are really wonky just because the arena's only open at certain times, or you can only get the ice. So how can you end up building a program for your players that's going to end up suiting their needs through the course of the year? Well, one of the things that I've heard a lot lately is it's going to end up being a lost year. And I really, really hope that when they write about history of hockey in our sport, that 2020 isn't a wasted year. In fact, it goes the other way. So like you say, being creative, even on the ice. And, I had a few ideas for people who aren't even allowed to be playing right now. And you use the word creative. I think that's critical with it. But how can you make your practices or whatever more competitive? How can you make them more interactive for your players? How can you hold them accountable for those things? Whether you're playing now or whether you're not, I think you just need to change the context of that environment based on where you're at, and trying to figure ways out to help them. One of the big ones that I think we have time this year to do, no matter which side of the fence you're on, is to help the players create an individual performance plan for themselves. Again, using those 4 buckets, but probably the tactical one, unless you're playing games, and even there, because they're so sporadic, I think the focus should more be on the technical side, just skill development and the mental performance piece. But how can you help the players do that? Designing a set of goals for them that are in those buckets, and then trying to help them reach it, whether it's in practices or whether, if you're not allowed to practice right now and play, how can you give them opportunities even outside of that? Playing street hockey out in the street, they could work on stick handling and shooting and passing things without even having to be at a rink doing it themselves. But just finding a way to help them to plan and organize something, because that's what the players are looking for. They want guidance and they want some support. They want to know that you care about them and that you're thinking. And probably, again, if you're playing, it could be a little bit more of a team structure when you're planning that, but certainly for the other side of it, it's going to be, how can I help each one of the players?
And you kind of answered my last question as well with, for players who are on pause and teams on pause, what they can do to stay in shape at home, keep their skills sharp. Obviously, going to an outdoor rink with less than 10 people there, going out on the driveway, working out at home in their basement, in their garage, anything like that. And you mentioned again, right, this is really, I think the best way to look at this from a player standpoint is this is really an opportunity. Don't want to use that word too much when we're talking about COVID, but this whole adversity is an opportunity for players to really grow off the ice, right?
I have the honor and that of working with high performance teams. So the best players in Alberta and working with Hockey Canada, the best in Canada. And one of the things that I've found in the last number of years is that we are not resilient like we used to be. Resilient meaning you take a beach ball that's full and bounce it, it'll come right back to you. If you take a beach ball that's half full, it will come halfway back. You have to bend over to get it. If you take all the air out of it, it doesn't bounce at all. And I think we're in that category now where that beach ball of ours is half full and it can't decide whether it's going to come all the way back or it's going to deflate and not jump at all. So I think from that perspective, it's really important that we try to hone in on how do we end up making sure that that beach ball is going to be full for the players the whole way through this. And you're right, Ted, it is adversity, but it's something, again, I go back to the coffee bean. Are we going to let the environment affect us, or can we control our environment and make the best of it? There's, and I'll put a plug in here, doing the work with Hockey Canada, we put together what's called the Under 16 portal, and any coach in Alberta basically can get on it by applying to Hockey Canada for it. And again, it's the 4 pillars that I spoke of with Hockey Alberta. One of the pillars is the physical one, and we had exercise physiologists put all of that information together. This is a perfect time to get on that and take a look at what they offered, because one of the pieces of advice we gave them when they were doing this is we wanted it to be an at-home program with players that didn't have a gym to go to. So everything that they did and showed the players how to train in that away from the rink is stuff that you don't need weights and bikes and all the fancy equipment for it. So again, the resources are out there. It's a matter of taking a look for it. Books have it, like you said, online, seeing a coach doing a cooking class, like all of those things are about being creative and helping the players. But that Under 16 portal from Hockey Canada is priceless.
And that's something we'll put a link on the website as well, so you can go and find that portal. Barry, again, thank you so much for joining us here. You know, like I said, as soon as you decide to be a life coach as well, sign me up. I think it's great stuff. Just a small glimpse inside the mind of Barry Medori, a great hockey mind and an excellent resource for coaches across Alberta. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon, and stay safe.
Thanks for asking, Ted. Have a great day. Stay safe.
So there's just a quick glimpse of what an amazing resource Hockey Alberta has in its 2 coach mentors. Really great stuff there from Barry Medori. If you do want to hear more, there's a full 1-hour presentation that Barry did a couple weeks ago on keeping your team engaged. It's up on Hockey Alberta's YouTube page if you want to watch it, and I highly suggest you go check it out. And just like that, episode 4 of the Center Ice podcast comes to a close. One last thank you again to Rob Litwinski and Barry Medori, and as always, a big thank you to producer Steve. I'm Ted Emmett. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time, and stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the Center Ice podcast. For this episode and more, head to hockeyalberta.ca. If there's a topic you'd like covered on an upcoming episode, email info@hockeyalberta.ca.